The sun scorched the endless desert, its wrath unyielding upon the shifting dunes. The labyrinth of sand stretched beyond the horizon, creating an illusion of infiniteness. Amidst this unforgiving vastness, a solitary figure moved with a deliberate yet weary gait. His name was Amun, a shepherd by necessity and adventurer by heart, now a captive of the arid wilderness. Days ago, he had entered the desert with a group of his companions, fellow shepherds drawn by the allure of the unexplored. Yet, as the labyrinthine dunes revealed their capricious nature, they were separated. Now, he walked alone, surrounded by an ocean of golden sand. He was a man of medium stature but carried an air of quiet resilience. His eyes, a vibrant shade of chestnut, reflected a curious spirit, hardened by the trials of the desert yet not defeated. His skin was sunburned, etching the harsh days and nights onto him. His once bright clothing was now stained and worn, telling a story of survival and will. His resourcefulness kept him alive. He had learned to catch and cook the scarce creatures that inhabited the desert, quenching his thirst with their juices, feeding off their meat. Tiny scorpions, lizards, and insects became his reluctant sustenance. Each catch was a victory, each meal a small triumph against the oppressive expanse around him. As night fell, the desert transformed, casting long, eerie shadows that danced in the moonlight. Amun huddled in his makeshift shelter, carved at the foot of a towering dune. His mind drifted to his lost companions. He wondered if they had found shelter, if they, too, had discovered a way to persist. Beneath the multitude of stars, Amun felt a crushing loneliness that mirrored the endless desert around him. His heart longed for companionship, for a familiar voice in the echoing silence. Yet, he understood the need for survival, and with that thought, he lay his head down, ready to face another day in the unforgiving labyrinth. The desert, once a land of dreams and adventures, had become his prison, testing his resolve, breaking and remaking him under its relentless sun and moon. Days turned into weeks, and the desert remained indifferent to Amun's plight. Each new dawn painted an identical scene, dunes upon dunes, stretching into eternity. Amun had taken to counting his days by scratching marks on a piece of bone he had found, a feeble attempt to hold on to the sanity that the desert was eager to erode. On a day that was no different from any other, Amun woke up to a peculiar sight. A lion stood a few feet away from him, a majestic creature against the backdrop of the desert's morning canvas. The beast, with its fierce eyes and a coat that looked like a ripple of golden fire under the sun, instilled both awe and terror in Amun's heart. He found himself frozen, his every instinct screaming danger. However, the lion did not pounce. Instead, it stared at him with an inscrutable gaze, an enigma hidden behind its leonine eyes. The desert held its breath, time seemed to pause, and for a few moments, man and beast locked eyes in an unspoken understanding. Then, as quietly as it had arrived, the lion turned and ambled away, its figure growing smaller against the mirage-filled horizon. Amun was left in stunned silence, his heart pounding in his chest. This encounter, so unexpected, so out of place, stirred something within him. It broke the monotony of his desert ordeal, leaving him both shaken and awed. Days later, another strange encounter would add to the enigma of the desert. A falcon, a majestic creature of the skies, began to shadow him. Its presence, a sharp contrast against the empty skies, became Amun's constant companion. The falcon's piercing eyes watched over him as he journeyed through the labyrinth of dunes. Amun started following the falcon, trusting its sharp instincts, and hoping that it might lead him to water or even a way out. It was a risky gamble, but the desert had already played crueler tricks on him. Perhaps this was a turn of fortune, perhaps he was only losing himself further. Either way, it was a chance Amun was willing to take in this land of shifting sands. Under the falcon's vigilant watch, Amun continued his journey. Each day, He would wake up to find the falcon circling in the sky above him, a silent guide leading him deeper into the labyrinth of dunes. This mysterious bond with the falcon became his lifeline, a glimmer of hope amidst his harsh existence. He observed the falcon's behavior, learned its habits. He noticed how it dove into the sand at certain spots, leading him to hidden caches of desert creatures that he could eat. He saw how it tilted its head towards faint sounds, warning him of scorpions buried under the sand. The desert was slowly revealing its secrets, guided by the falcon's instinctive wisdom. One night, under the veil of the moonlit desert, Amun had the strangest encounter yet. He woke up to the falcon perched near him, its beady eyes reflecting the silver moonlight. It looked at him, and to Amun's utter disbelief, it spoke. Its voice, a clear whisper, sent chills down his spine.
"You follow me, Amun. Why?"
The bird questioned, its voice echoing in the silent desert. Amun, taken aback, stuttered.
"I thought you might lead me to my friends, or a way out."
The mere thought of his friends brought a pang of guilt. He had hoped they had survived as he did, but deep down, he feared the worst. A soft, almost sympathetic sound came from the falcon.
"Your friends have traveled to the world of eternity, Amun. Their journey through the desert has ended."
The news struck him like a blow. Grief overwhelmed him, but he had no time to mourn. He needed to survive, to honor the memory of his friends. Catching his breath, he asked the falcon about the way out. The falcon looked at him with its piercing eyes.
"The way out is here, Amun."
With those words, it spread its wings and took flight, soaring high above the labyrinth of sand. Amun watched, his eyes squinting against the harsh sunlight. But there was nothing. The bird had given him no direction, no sign. Just the endless stretch of golden sand and clear blue sky. "Where?" Amun shouted, his voice echoing in the vastness. "Where is the way out?" But the falcon was already a speck in the sky, its form disappearing in the shimmering heat of the desert. The falcon's cryptic words left him in contemplation. He scanned his surroundings. The desolate desert sprawled around him in every direction, offering no clues, just an eternal landscape of shifting sands. His heart pounded with frustration and desperation, the hopelessness of his situation crashing over him like a wave. For hours, he pondered over the falcon's words, turning them over in his mind like a precious gem. The mystery of the talking bird and its enigmatic message added another layer to his desert ordeal. His companions, his hope, the way out, everything seemed lost, and yet, there was a riddle to be solved, a hidden meaning to be found in the falcon's words. A spark of determination ignited within Amun. He had survived this far, and he would not give up now. With newfound resolve, he set his mind on solving the falcon's riddle, clinging to the possibility of finding a way out of the labyrinth. Determined to decipher the falcon's enigma, Amun immersed himself in deep thought. The desert around him became a secondary concern, a mere backdrop to the mystery that was consuming his mind. The falcon's words echoed relentlessly in his mind. "The way out is here, Amun." But where was here? What did the falcon imply? The riddle gnawed at him, pushing him towards the edge of frustration. In this vast, unyielding desert, here could be anywhere, or nowhere at all. It was during one of his frustrating bouts of contemplation, idly sifting through sand, that a realization dawned upon him. Could here mean right under him, beneath the countless grains of sand? The more he thought about it, the more sense it made. After all, the desert was not just the expanse around him, it was also the depth beneath him. Emboldened by this epiphany, Amun began to dig. His hands, already roughened by the harsh desert conditions, tore into the sand, a man possessed by a singular purpose. He dug relentlessly, hour after hour, driven by the faint glimmer of hope that the answer to the falcon's riddle lay beneath the surface. As Amun dug deeper, his body pushed to the brink of exhaustion, his spirit fueled by the prospect of escape. Finally, after long hours of relentless digging, his hand struck something hard. With a gasp of surprise, he cleared away the sand to reveal a sphere made of metal, covered in ancient, mysterious symbols. He cautiously picked up the object, its weight surprising for its size. It was surprisingly cool to the touch, despite having lain under the scorching desert sands. He examined the symbols etched onto its surface, their meaning as elusive as the wind whispering through the sand dunes. As he held the sphere in his weary hand, something remarkable occurred. A soft hum emanated from the object, growing louder by the second. Before Amun could react, the sphere burst into a brilliant light. The desert was set ablaze with hues of azure and gold, the sands reflecting the sudden illumination. He watched in awe as the sphere projected a dizzying display of lights into the sky above him. Thousands of pinpoints of light danced and shimmered, coalescing into shapes and patterns that echoed the constellations of the night sky. The shapes moved and shifted as though following an unseen map, their patterns weaving a story that Amun couldn't quite grasp. He sat transfixed, a humble man in the vast desert, holding a magical artifact that painted the sky with celestial visions. The light pulsed and flickered, creating a symphony of silent stories playing out in the expanse of the sky. As quickly as it began, the spectacle waned, and the sphere dimmed to a gentle glow. The sky returned to its usual state, its usual tranquility, as if nothing extraordinary had just occurred. Yet Amun knew he had witnessed something extraordinary. He didn't fully understand the sphere's projections, but the sight was engraved in his mind, a testament to the wonder and mystery of the desert. Clutching the sphere tightly, he was filled with renewed determination, ready to face the desert's trials armed with this mysterious artifact from the sands. As Amun was holding the ancient sphere, a rumble echoed through the desert. The sand beneath his feet began to tremble, sending panic through his heart. In the desert, the unexpected was seldom good. He braced himself, clutching the sphere tightly as the tremors grew stronger. To his utter disbelief, he saw the sand begin to churn and shift in front of him, revealing a massive structure hidden beneath. It was a pyramid, each stone perfectly cut and placed, towering high above the sand dunes. As it rose, the desert seemed to bow before its magnificence, a silent acknowledgement of its ancient authority. The pyramid was gigantic. Its stone surface was worn and weathered but bore the timeless grace of an ancient architecture. Weird symbols adorned its sides, whispering tales of a civilization long gone. An immense entrance beckoned him, promising answers to the riddles that had consumed his existence in the desert. With a sense of trepidation and awe, Amun approached the pyramid. Every step towards it felt like a step to another world. He couldn't help but wonder if this was the end of his desert labyrinth, or the beginning of another. With a deep breath, he stepped inside. The interior of the pyramid was surprisingly cool compared to the scorching desert outside. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he found himself in a large chamber filled with strange equipment and decorated with more of those mysterious symbols. In the center of the chamber were two beings unlike any he had ever seen. Their forms were humanoid but with distinct differences. Their skin was a pale, luminescent white, their eyes larger and more expressive. They were waiting for him. Amun stood there, overwhelmed by the sight before him. The lion, the falcon, the pyramid, and now these beings. The desert had pushed his reality to the point of surrealism. Yet, as he looked at these beings, he felt no fear, just an intense curiosity. What were they doing here? What was their connection to the labyrinth and his ordeal? These questions buzzed in his mind as he stepped further into the chamber, ready to face the unknown. In the grandeur of the pyramid, Amun cautiously approached the two creatures, his grip tightening around the mysterious sphere. Their large, expressive eyes seemed to glimmer with an otherworldly light, reflecting images and emotions Amun found hard to comprehend. He tried to decipher their expressions, to find a hint of hostility or aggression. But to his surprise, their eyes were filled with curiosity rather than hostility. They did not speak a word, they were just looking at him, their gaze never wavering. "Who are you?" Amun ventured hesitantly, breaking the silence that had blanketed the room. I mean no harm." His voice echoed through the cavernous space, bouncing off the cold, stone walls. There was no reply. The two beings simply continued their silent vigil, watching him with an unsettling stillness. Despite their lack of verbal response, they seemed to understand him, their eyes flickering with an unspoken comprehension. His throat parched and stomach growling, Amun decided to communicate his need. Using a combination of gestures and simple words, he conveyed his thirst and hunger. "Water. Food." He managed to croak out, his voice barely above a whisper. The creatures exchanged a look before one of them moved. It glided towards a corner of the room, returning with a bowl filled with an unknown liquid and a plate laden with unusual fruits. The creature extended its arms towards him, an offer of sustenance. Cautious yet desperate, Amun took a tentative step forward, reaching for the offered food. The liquid was a vibrant shade of blue, emitting a faint glow, while the fruits were a riot of colors, their forms strange and alien. He hesitated, but the gnawing hunger and thirst pushed him to accept their offering. The liquid was refreshing, unlike anything he had tasted before. It quenched his thirst instantly, filling him with a sense of revitalization. The fruits, although strange in appearance, were delicious. Their flavors were a perfect blend of sweetness and tartness, a culinary marvel from an unknown world. The relief washed over Amun as he took another sip from the bowl, feeling the fatigue seep out of his body. He looked up at the two beings, gratitude swelling in his chest. With a slight bow of his head, he thanked them. "I am grateful. You have saved me." The creatures remained silent, their eyes continuing to observe him, their silence an inscrutable puzzle. But even without words, Amun felt a connection, a bond forged by the simple act of sharing food and drink in a place far from home. Suddenly, a wave of drowsiness swept over him. His vision blurred, and his body felt heavy. With a staggering step, he struggled to steady himself. But his legs gave way, and he crumbled onto his knees. Fighting the encroaching darkness, he lifted his head, his gaze meeting the semi-divine creatures. His lips moved, a whisper escaping him, gratitude and confusion mingling in his voice. His last glimpse was of the creatures standing over him. And then, he fell into a deep sleep, a peaceful slumber after days of hardship. As he slept, he had a vision of the lion and the falcon he had met in the desert. They stood majestically in the chamber, their figures radiating a divine aura. The sight filled him with a sense of serenity. The mystery of the desert, the pyramid, those mysterious beings, everything started to make sense. The desert wasn't a mere geographical entity. It was a sacred space, a gate between worlds. This was a revelation he had not anticipated. Amun awoke with the feeling of sand beneath his body and the scent of the desert filling his senses. The memory of the pyramid and the two beings felt like a surreal dream. He slowly sat up, rubbing his eyes to dispel the remnants of sleep. The chamber was empty, the strange equipment gone. All that remained were supplies of food and water. He couldn't help but wonder, was it all a dream? But the lingering taste of the strange fruit and the sight of the pyramid's entrance were proof enough that it was real. With newfound energy, he climbed to the top of the pyramid. The view from the apex was breathtaking, the labyrinth of sand dunes spread out as far as his eyes could see. But what truly caught his attention was a distant shimmer. a long river snaking its way through the desert, an oasis of life amidst the barren sand. Tears welled up in his eyes. He could finally escape the desert labyrinth. Leaving the pyramid behind, Amun made his way towards the river. The journey was strenuous, but the sight of the flowing water gave him strength. As he neared, he could see lush greenery hugging the river, a stark contrast to the arid desert. Upon reaching the river, he was greeted by the sight of a woman collecting water. She was beautiful, her skin glowing under the sun like the desert sands, her eyes as vibrant as the clear water. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Amun felt a connection stronger than anything he had experienced in his ordeal. The woman, Nefret, was a native of a nearby village. She listened to his tale with awe and sympathy. In return, she shared stories of her village and their beliefs, of a lion god who was a protector and a falcon god who was a guide. Amun couldn't help but think of his own encounters with the lion and the falcon. As days turned into weeks, Amun and Nefret's bond grew stronger. He found a companion in her, a partner who understood his ordeal and admired his resilience. It wasn't long before they fell in love, their connection rooted in shared experiences and mutual respect. Living in the village with Nefret, Amun found peace. He had escaped the desert, survived its trials, and found love. But he hadn't forgotten the lion, the falcon, and the two creatures. They had guided him, helped him survive. In their honor, he began to tell his tale, sharing it with the villagers. His tale wove into the village's lore, shaping the mythology of the region. The people of the village were captivated by Amun's incredible journey, the tales of the lion and the falcon resonating with their existing beliefs. Amun then decided to immortalize the creatures that had saved his life. He organized the villagers, and together, they began constructing statues of the lion and the falcon, symbols of strength, protection, wisdom, and guidance. The villagers worked under the desert sun, their labor a testament to their respect for the two divine creatures. The statues rose steadily, their imposing forms visible from miles around. The lion, majestic and powerful, seemed ready to leap into action. The falcon, wings spread wide, seemed poised for flight. Standing side by side, they represented the indomitable spirit of the desert and its people. As Amun observed the statues, he felt a surge of pride. His ordeal in the desert had not only led him to a new home and love, but had also added to the rich tapestry of his people's cultural heritage. His story had transcended personal experience, becoming a collective mythology, a tale passed down through generations. From the edge of the desert, the two statues stood as sentinels, their eyes forever looking towards the vast expanse of sand. Amun and Nefret, now a family, would often sit by the statues under the starry sky, telling their children the tale of the desert, the labyrinth, the lion, and the falcon. The story became a song, a melody carried by the desert winds, echoing through the sands of time. And so, in the heart of the unforgiving desert, a story had been carved, a tale woven from sand and time. In every grain, every gust of wind, echoed the lion's roar, the falcon's cry, and the humble man who survived the desert labyrinth. The statues of the lion and the falcon stood tall, a silent homage to a journey that etched a timeless saga in the sands, giving birth to the mythology of a civilization, a legend as eternal as the desert itself.